Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 37 of Syncing with ServiceNow. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. I'll knock the commercial out real quick, guys. If you're listening and you are working with a ServiceNow partner that doesn't bring value beyond table stakes, that doesn't add, thought leadership into what you're doing, doesn't have years and years and years of experience. And by the way, I'm talking to ServiceNow people too. If you're working at ServiceNow and your partners aren't doing that, or maybe they used to do that and they got bought by somebody, now they don't do it anymore, or they do it and they want to charge a fortune for it. XenTegra is a partner that it was built from day one to help vendors, aka ServiceNow, and customers be successful. This ServiceNow thing, this platform is unlimited in what you can do with it. You'll never get everything out of it. Starts with just having the right mindset. Mike Sabia is with us. Mike is our master architect. Mike, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Andy.
And I would ask you to echo what I just said because you just came from another partner, but that's why you're here. That's why you joined us.
No,
So,
it's true. And my old partner wasn't bad, but I needed a fresh look, and sometimes you need fresh eyes. Take a look, find out what another partner can do, what their perspective is, and help you look at your things differently, which is in fact one of the topics for today.
and I tell people all the time, you should always have two partners just to get second opinions, right? You have two doctors quite often. Hopefully you do, especially if it's something serious. Well, the second opinion is not bad, at least, especially one that does a podcast where you don't even have to go see them. You just listen to their podcast every once in a while. Fred Reynolds runs the practice. Fred, you came from Avaya. At any point in time, did you have more than one partner you were talking to just to validate conversations?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think as an enterprise company, you always have multiple partners, and some partners are preferred by, procurement to go after. I think when it comes to certain technologies, right, you certainly have to look and start to trust the partners that have the knowledge to go along with that technology. Because there's some big partners and they know a lot about a lot of things, but not specializes in certain things. So,
Yeah.
100%.
And it's one thing to say somebody thinks they know it all about a product. This is a platform. Nobody knows it all, including ServiceNow.
That's correct.
Eddie McDonald's with us. Eddie, you've been around the block for, well, a long time. Um, you've probably had opportunities where other partners came in and talked to customers that you were working with and maybe advised them along the way, and that wasn't necessarily the end of the world for everybody.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Fred because Fred was one of my customers, and yes, Avaya did have a number of different partners. He always tasked me to come clean up their mess, but yeah, it's not uncommon to have multiple partners. And Mike kind of nailed it. You can't know it all, but there are areas that we are truly exceptional at, and we're happy to jump in if we can.
Yeah. I love your mess comment because that's an easy one for us. I tell people all the time the best customer of, say, product X or platform X, for me, is somebody who's already worked with somebody else. So we know where to come in and what to fix and look like heroes. Topic for today. It's a blog from July 17th of this year from Matt O'Brien. The topic is unifying customer experience with contact center as a service. Yeah, I had an interesting conversation with somebody early on when we got into this ServiceNow game, and they didn't understand why we were using ServiceNow and not just some other contact center or even field service management tool. And I tried to explain to them because ServiceNow is a thing that's bringing all of these technologies together and all the things we're doing in the business. Mike, you had a lot to do with bringing this blog. Why did you pick this one?
I you know, as we look at the further development of the ServiceNow platform, but in fact the industry and how we are approaching our technical complexities, one of those things is that our customers often are outsourcing, whether it's driving to your restaurant or deliveries or the customer service help desk. And if you have a partner who's doing your help desk and you have that concept of a customer care as a service, that means somebody else is doing it for you or could do it for you. What are the opportunities to perhaps outsource that ability or even just take advantage of some of the capabilities that they do in order to improve your own business. I have quite a focus historically on customer service management, and this is one of them. You have your help desk, your tier one, who are taking calls, and how are you going to improve that? Are you just going to be doing as the article said, are you going to do the same old stuff with the same old results, or do you want to take a fresh look at what is possible and how you can improve things? And we'll talk a little bit more as we go through this.
You know, one of the things that comes to mind as you're saying that is I get the experience, as does most people, lots of different customer service experiences. When you go to one where they get it right and they know who you are when you call and they've got you tied to your account, they don't ask you all the same old dumb questions, or they're able to help you solve your problems quick and you're, shocked at how quick it was. And then you go to someone who's not, it becomes clear who's using the technology and who's not using the technology. Fred, have you had an experience like that?
I mean, what's funny is we're sitting about contact center, but what just popped in my head real quick is like when you think about going out and customer experience as a period, I think about like Chick-fil-A's drive-through, right? I mean, when you go out to eat, it's like if you had to pick between going through this drive-through or go to a Chick-fil-A and you're in a hurry, like Chick-fil-A has figured out how to work their drive-throughs. I'm sure that's the same for your area. You said it right, Andy. I just had a couple of issues here at the house with my internet. A lot of things are breaking at the same time, so I'm calling different numbers to get support. I can tell the ones that are actually have a very clean customer service support center as well as the back end, because I had a better experience from the front end. And I think that's more what we need to talk about here is how does the back end help customers get a better experience overall? You can always tell it's very broken and fragmented because you get past to like 6 different people having to provide them the same information, and it's very annoying. So yeah, I've experienced that all weekend.
So Eddie, the bullets they call it is orchestrate the customer journey, unify the agent experience, which by the way, the agents being happy at their job is probably a big part of this too. Improve the workflow in the contact center and beyond. Are these 3 topics that align with what you think we're going to cover today?
It is. And, if you've been on a number of these podcasts, I'm always leaning into the people part of the platform. Of course, I drank the ServiceNow Kool-Aid a long time ago, but how does the platform impact the people? And to use Fred's example, Chick-fil-A is doing it right. They doubled the size of their drive-throughs. I mean, that's a lot of money for the land they had to use. They put folks outside. I mean, they deliver to your car versus you having to come up into the window. It is an investment that they made in their customers and an investment they made into their employees to create that better experience. And it's anybody that works in an organization, doesn't matter what business you're in, you have customers and everybody should be focused on servicing them because a happy customer is going to stay. And it's a lot cheaper to keep a customer than go out and find a new one.
You said something just now that was interesting to me. I didn't think about the fact that first time I saw 2-lane drive-throughs with ServiceNow, Chick-fil-A doing it. And then now a lot of the places where they have, continuous customer, backup and things are doing it. And they're even some of the ones that don't have it, they do it by default because they're trying to keep up with, the market leader.
Absolutely.
Here's the quote for the next section. It says, same old issues, same old results. There's the quote from the blog, by bringing together ServiceNow customer management, service management, and leading contact center as a service platforms, organizations can deliver an unmatched level of speed and consistency to customer service experiences. Mike, is this about really taking ServiceNow and bringing other contact center softwares into the mix and optimizing and making them more powerful?
In many cases, yes. Part of that service experience is, when you call up and you get those voice prompts, what are you doing with them? And yes, you can, have some awkward steps where you have to, go through 5 layers of questions. But if you have an optimized voice prompt, you can ask the correct questions and then send it to the correct team. Now, ServiceNow does have some new voice capabilities where you can actually define those voice prompts and those categorizations in ServiceNow itself, and then you can adjust it. And based on that, from ServiceNow, you can say, hey, if they're asking about this, send to this team. If they're asking about this, send to that team. But ultimately, the whole article is talking about if somebody's coming in, you want to get them to the right group. And ultimately, ideally, you'd want to get it to the right person based on skills.
And it's we're 13 minutes into the podcast here, and we're going to bring up the acronym AI. The promise is with AI, this becomes even smarter, even better, and you don't even have to, manually populate prompts. It understands what humans are asking for, and narrows it down from there.
Yeah, but if you can ask, voice to text or text to voice rather, to find out what somebody's asking for, do some AI against some of the words they're asking and send the correct team, and then have that team directed to an individual, absolutely speeds up the experience for the end user.
Yeah.
So Andy, I think the next part of this is certainly AI, right? But I think there's so many companies that still haven't cracked the first nut, right? Because I think it says it somewhere in here too, right? On an average agent's going to have to contact or log into probably 4 different systems to be able to help a customer. That's the power that I see here. We did it at Avaya when we started using, this was our core contact center platform to use for our managed service customers. They came into ServiceNow first. It was the integrations we did on the background to make sure they had information coming in from all the back office systems or even the sales tools to put in front of that agent all the information they need to answer the questions what the customer's dealing with. Then I think it's that next step is the knowledge articles, the things that relate to what the issues they're having, right? The more we know about that, then AI can plan into saying, hey, maybe they do these things and help solve those. Then to Mike's point, right, having it all at one place to route and get it to the right people fast is important. So it all has to be there.
Yeah,
Now-
and that last sentence there is really impactful. 69% of customers say they're likely to switch brands due to poor service experience. So that's a huge number, but it also doesn't mention the agent. How many employees leave because of a poor experience? And what's the cost? What's that cost of attrition, to onboard somebody new, get them up to speed and yada, yada. Usually tens of thousands of dollars of lost productivity to replace somebody. So not only if you find new customers, you have to find new employees with a bad experience.
And last week in our podcast last week, I mentioned that I had worked at a company and I had to work with some awkward tools, and I don't know if it was the reason I left, but it was certainly a contributing factor. Just to build one other thing that I mentioned, and this article suggests, that it's an end consumer, somebody having internet issues, somebody having, going through the restaurant line, but this can also apply to business customers as well. Hey, I calling up, I have an issue with, something's down, something's not working, and being able to stay in one system and see what changes happened to be able to see whether there's an events, alarms coming on devices. That single platform rather than 4 different point solutions absolutely improves time and improves the customer satisfaction.
So I want to highlight real quick, and this is my restaurant experience, especially with my significant other. It's calling out a singular poor customer service experience. You could have 20 great ones, 20 good ones, 20 great ones, and have one poor. Next thing you know, your opinion of that organization just went down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Next section here, a new vision for customer service. Mike calls out 3 things: centralized integration and work routing, unified agent workspace, optimized workforce engagement. Go ahead and take on those for me.
Sure. So if you're familiar with ServiceNow, and I'm going to try to be a little less technical, but the idea is that if somebody calls up, there's what ServiceNow calls an interaction. You're not sure if it's a misdial, whether they're having an internet issue, they want to order something. ServiceNow that has this idea of an interaction. You're able to gather some information, and as you know what that is, then you can create the correct type of ticket. And tied in with that is the work routing. If you're able to determine enough information about the call, whether that's fed in from your telephony system or speaking to the person, you can get it to the correct group more appropriately. And by using AI on some of the voice prompts or on some of the messaging, if your omni-channel interface in question right here is an email, maybe rather than a phone service, that will speed up that routing and get things done quicker.
Yeah.
So for the second one, we talked a little bit. Fred,
just maybe and I'm sorry I teed you up wrong for that. Maybe let Fred and Eddie comment on each of these as you finish each one.
Yeah.
Fred, Eddie, any thoughts on the first one here? Centralized interaction and work routing.
I was actually looking at the optimized workforce engagement, so whenever you hear engagement, think productivity, and productivity is money in your pocket. So obviously I'm always looking at the people experience part, but there's only value in that if we're saving money and keeping them to be productive. So sorry, I'll have to read the first one. I don't know, Fred, if you want to comment on that one.
That's fine. We moved on to the money conversation. That's
I mean, I'm all look. I mean, that my dad only gave me one good piece of advice my entire life, and it was the answer to none of your problems is less money.
Back to the first one, AI and routing. I mean, obviously that's really important, I think, for that customer satisfaction and moving quickly. And again, we were talking about, it's kind of funny, we had a lot of interaction in this conversation around the agents being happy, and I started really thinking about that because there is a lot of churn in that industry with people trying to work contact centers. And part of the frustration gets to be is the tools on the back end not assisting them in providing the information, and then customers getting very irritated because it's not fast enough. I think these are the things that really empower them to do their job. On that AI side, it works so much faster than us and brings things to our fingertips, and right into the right people saves that interaction of putting people on hold and moving around. So I think that's really that will really help a whole lot.
I'm sure there's concerns as to whether AI will replace some of these jobs, and it might, it probably will, but it'll also, for the people that continue to do these jobs, it'll make it a whole lot easier for them. That's for sure.
Yes.
Self-service, but probably not from a true contact center perspective.
Yeah.
And the thing, that argument comes up all the time that AI is going to replace jobs, and typically it might replace a handful of entry level jobs. But at the end of the day, it's going to take people and it's going to take the nonsense off their plate for the day. It's going to make their jobs easier. Who wants to compile notes? I used it twice today to compile notes into a bulleted form that I needed to send out in an email, and it took me seconds versus a half an hour. So yeah, I feel that everybody's going to use it, and it's going to be second nature.
Yeah. So, Fred, Mike, Eddie's number 3 here: optimize workforce engagement. Time is money, and people are more efficient. Thoughts on that one?
I think that's the key to business in general, right? I mean, you have to be able to keep up with that. I mean, I know at where I was, we had 1,800 people working on, tickets and instances that were working through this stuff. So you have to optimize as much as possible. Your agents being able to get to it quickly. Again, I think we've kind of beat that in there, but having the tools for their desktop for them to be able to find and route and to do their work is key.
So number
Right.
2,
Yeah.
I think, go ahead. Sorry, Mike, go
I
ahead.
was just going to add on to that. One of the capabilities that ServiceNow has that not all customers leverage is the idea of, going to the portal and chatting with the agent, or, having different ways that a customer comes into the person. And if you can visualize and see some of those advantages, you can have, a better, quicker answer. Now, I'm kind of diving into 2 a little bit, but what I'm pointing out is that, a lot of the calls that come into ServiceNow, ServiceNow has done a lot of tremendous work to improve their platform. And if we can leverage those, then you take advantage of it. Whether it is, a user, an agent being able to see that they have a phone call and maybe a chat from a portal and maybe an email coming through. If they're able to see how much work they have, maybe have routing based on how busy or how many calls one person is working, all of that stuff is going to optimize in order to have possibly less staff employed. Maybe not just have an on-call or people just handling chat, but maybe handling chat and phone, to be able to weave those together into an efficient method is going to improve your workforce.
Mike, that's a really good point, because agents don't just only talk on the phone, and there's an entire generation of people, young folks, who would much rather chat or work in a portal versus call somebody on the phone. And if you can make those agents be able to take multiple points of contact at once without having to get on the phone and make them faster, that's only going to help your bottom line.
Yeah, I'm going to take number 2 here and tie it slightly into my own experience doing, support desk type of work, and a unified agent workspace for the workforce. And what I mean by that is there was many, many times I would inherit a ticket from someone else who had 0 notes, like there was nothing. What if there was some AI out there in a product like ServiceNow bringing all those notes forward, no matter whether the other person ever logged the thing or not? I would be so much better off when that ticket came over to me than I would have been, had I relied on a human being.
And I'm going to absolutely, Andy, the ability to have AI, summarize a ticket so somebody can pick it up quickly. That's what ServiceNow is pushing. That being said, there's a lot of other efficiencies that ServiceNow has added to its agent workspace. If you were on ServiceNow a few years ago, it's a very straightforward interface, maybe not super fancy, but it did the job. And then ServiceNow spent the time into their agent workspace so that if you were handling, a phone call, an email, a chat, you don't have to scroll around, 3 different browser windows. Everything's in one browser windows, perhaps some tabs underneath that. It is purposely built. They moved the comments up to make it face forward. They rearranged it for efficiency based on those efficiency studies. It has that enhanced workspace, and it's unified not just to the case that you're handling for the user, but maybe opening up underlying tickets like an incident or change, or having access to outage reports, having everything unified.
Yeah. So Mike, the last section, it's called the next evolution in CX, customer experience. I think you kind of just summed it up, but I mean, what specifically do they call out in this last section around the evolution that you just mentioned?
So one thing that mentioned, and I kind of alluded to this at the very beginning, was they have the customer service as a solution or as a service. And just to take a quick tangent, there are some customers who have their own ServiceNow instance. There are some customers who are very small and can just be attended on a larger instance. But there are also some customers who say, "Hey, we don't have the time to hire our own ServiceNow staff. We want a partner like XenTegra to have a separate instance, but they manage it for us." Similar thing for here. Maybe they have customer service as a service. They have somebody else utilize it, and that is a capability that ServiceNow is absolutely supporting. So that'd be the first paragraph. Second paragraph talks about that intelligent routing, maybe based on capabilities and skills. So like, hey, I have a network issue, but it's a VPN issue. So let me send it to the person with the VPN experience. Automated workflows, the ability to, have the workflow, smoothly go through rather than waiting on multiple people to do their task and then maybe forgetting that they have to do the task. The whole solution orchestrates together. And when you talk about customer service and how you're going to, be better than you were 10, 20 years ago and service your customers better, you have to look at that whole picture.
Fred, any thoughts?
Well, I think my overall thought is, let's go back to the fact that we're talking about ServiceNow here in the customer service and contact center perspective, right? I think this shows the growth of ServiceNow over the last 10 years. When I first looked at ServiceNow, it was not the area that I was looking for in. So I think the investments they've made, I mean, when you look at what they put together from a CSM perspective, and now the customers' viewpoints, the portals, the dashboards, like Mike said, the agents, what comes to their fingertips and how they displayed how it looks, I think they've done a lot in this area to where now I believe that a customer can absolutely build an end-to-end solution on ServiceNow from the customer to back end. So I think that's kudos to just investment and how much they put towards changing that customer experience on the ServiceNow platform.
Yeah, and if you want me to wrap up, Andy, I'll go ahead and finish up with your commercial at the beginning. We talked about, ServiceNow is huge and not everybody's going to know everything, but customer service management is an area of the platform where we truly excel. Our team has been building CSM on ServiceNow before it was an option on ServiceNow. So we have deep tenured experience in all things customer service management and field service management. And this is just the next iteration of that.
And Eddie and Fred and Mike, what I would just add to that, that applies in our world to customers of all sizes, because that same customer experience that the blog's talking about here is something we're doing for ourselves, and we've made part of our managed instance that can easily be shared with other customers. So, most people, when you have these ServiceNow conversations, think of the big players, medium players at a minimum. In our world, it applies to everybody looking for that customer journey.
It's a great point. No matter how large or small, we have that ability to deliver today for them.
Yep. Well, guys, I appreciate the time jumping on today, talk about something that is relevant across the entire industry, no matter what the industry is, everything. So I appreciate it, and look forward to talking again.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.